The signal from the dying world. The message came at 3:47 in the morning. Earth Standard Time. Lieutenant Una Park was alone in the communications room of the Earth Defense flagship Eternal Dawn when her screens lit up with something she had never seen before. The signal was weak, broken, traveling across 40 light-years of empty space. But the words were clear enough to make her blood run cold. Please, anyone. They are eating us from the inside. Our children scream, but their eyes are empty. Please, Earth, help us. Una's hand shook as she recorded the message. She had served on the Eternal Dawn for 6 years. She had seen pirates, asteroid storms, and hostile alien encounters. But something in that voice made her feel like a child afraid of the dark. She pressed the emergency button and called for Captain Tai-Ho Kim. The captain arrived within minutes. He moved through the doorway like smoke, silent and graceful in a way that no ordinary human could match. His skin was pale as fresh snow, and his dark eyes held depths that seemed to go on forever. Tai-Ho Kim was 347 years old, born human, turned vampire during the chaos of the 25th century. Now he commanded Earth's most powerful warship. Play it again, he said. His voice was soft, but it carried weight. Una played the message. Tai-Ho listened without moving, without breathing. Vampires didn't need to breathe, but most of them did it anyway to seem more human. When Tai-Ho stopped, it meant he was thinking very seriously. The Valoran Confederacy, he said when the message ended. I know them. Peaceful people. Good people. They have no army, no weapons. They believe in diplomacy above all else. What's attacking them, sir? Una asked. Tai-Ho's jaw tightened. The message mentioned empty eyes. Screaming children who aren't really there anymore. He turned to face her, and for just a moment, his eyes flashed red in the dim light. The Hollow. Una felt her stomach drop. Every spacefaring species knew about the Hollow. They were a parasitic hive mind that consumed not flesh, not blood, but consciousness itself. They crawled inside your mind and ate everything that made you who you were. Your memories, your feelings, your soul. What remained was a walking shell, a puppet controlled by the hive, wearing your face while you screamed silently in a prison inside your own head. 17 species had faced the Hollow throughout galactic history. All 17 were now extinct. Why did they call Earth? Una asked. We're not the strongest military power. We're not even in the top 10. Tai-Ho smiled, but there was no humor in it. Because the Valorans are smart. They've studied history. They know that humans have faced extinction more times than any other species and survived every single time. He paused. What they don't know is how we survived. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of innocent people were having their minds devoured. Wake the Night Council, Tai-Ho said. Tell them we have work to do. The Night Council met in a chamber deep within the Eternal Dawn. The room had no windows, no lights except for dim red bulbs along the walls. It was designed this way on purpose. Many of the council members were uncomfortable in bright light. Una stood at the back of the room and watched as Earth's true defenders took their seats. Elder Suho Beak arrived first. He was the oldest vampire anyone knew of, over 2,000 years old. Turned during an era when kingdoms rose and fell like waves on a beach. He looked like a man in his 40s, handsome in a cold and distant way, with silver streaks in his black hair. He had watched empires crumble and civilizations burn. Nothing surprised him anymore. Next came Hannah Jiang, alpha of the Pacific Wolf clans. She was tall and muscular, with scars on her arms that healed and reappeared with every full moon. Her eyes were golden even in human form, and when she smiled, her teeth were just a little too sharp. The werewolves had nearly gone to war with humanity 3 times before finally making peace. Now they served as Earth's most loyal soldiers. Do Choi entered through a door that hadn't existed a moment before. He was a demon, bound to Earth since ancient times, older than Suho by several centuries. His human form was that of a young man with kind eyes and a gentle smile, but shadows moved around him that didn't match his body. He had once fed on human suffering. Now he channeled that hunger toward Earth's enemies. Finally, there was Mira Shin. She looked like an ordinary woman in her 60s, gray-haired and soft-spoken. But Mira was a shaman, a bridge between the living and the dead. Ghosts followed her everywhere, invisible to most eyes, but always present, always watching. The spirits of 1,000 generations stood behind her, waiting to serve. Taiho took his place at the head of the table. You've all heard the message. The Valorans are dying. The Hollow have found them, and this concerns us. Why? Suho asked. His voice was like ice cracking. We are not the galaxy's guardians. We have our own world to protect. Because, Taiho replied, if the Hollow finish with the Valorans, they'll grow stronger. They'll spread. And eventually, they'll come for Earth. Better to fight them now, far from home, than to wait until they're at our door. Hannah leaned forward. What do we know about these Hollow? Can they be killed? They can be killed, but they're protected by the minds they've consumed. Every Hollow soldier is piloting a stolen body. Killing them means killing the victim too. Taiho's expression darkened. And worse, they're psychic parasites. They attack the mind directly. Any species with a normal consciousness is vulnerable. Silence fell over the room. Then, slowly, Do-yoon began to laugh. Forgive me, he said, still chuckling. But did you just say they attack the mind? The consciousness? The soul? Yes. Do-yoon spread his hands and grinned. Then we are perfect for this mission. Vampires have no souls. They traded them for immortality centuries ago. Werewolves have 2 minds, human and wolf, protecting each other. Demons exist partially outside reality itself. And ghosts? He nodded toward Myra. The dead have nothing left to take. Myra smiled softly. The Hollow cannot hollow what is already empty, or what exists in places they cannot reach. Taiho looked around the table. Then we're agreed? We answer the call? One by one, they nodded. Suao spoke last. I have lived for 2,000 years. I have killed more humans than I care to remember. I have spent the last 5 centuries trying to atone for what I was. His ancient eyes glittered with something that might have been excitement. Perhaps this is my chance. Perhaps this is why I was allowed to survive for so long. Hannah growled low in her throat, a sound of agreement. My wolves are restless. They need a hunt. A real hunt. Something worthy of their teeth. Do-yoon's shadow swirled eagerly. My kind hasn't tasted fear from something truly powerful in ages. This will be refreshing. Myra simply closed her eyes. Around her, the temperature dropped as 1,000 ghosts stirred to attention. The dead remember the Hollow's victims. 17 species erased from existence. They want justice. They will have it. Taiho stood. Then prepare your forces. We leave within the day. As the council dispersed, Yuna approached Taiho carefully. Sir, what should I tell the Valorans? What should I say is coming to help them? Taiho considered the question. Then he placed a cold hand on her shoulder. Tell them Earth heard their cry. Tell them help is on the way. His eyes flickered red in the darkness. But don't tell them what kind of help. Some things are better shown than explained. The fleet departed 6 hours later. 12 black ships, running silent, carrying the darkness that humanity had learned to call family. The Valorans had asked for heroes. They were about to meet Earth's monsters. The monsters assemble. The journey to Valoran space would take 9 days at maximum speed. 9 days of preparation. 9 days for Earth's monsters to remember what they truly were. On the second day, Unipark walked through the lower decks of the Eternal Dawn and witnessed something that would stay with her for the rest of her life. The vampire barracks were cold and dark, lit only by small red lights along the floor. 300 vampires rested there, most of them lying still as corpses in their bunks. They didn't sleep, not really. They simply went quiet, conserving energy, waiting. But some of them were awake, and they were feeding. Synthetic blood came in silver packets, manufactured in labs on Earth to taste exactly like the real thing. The vampires drank it without complaint, but Yuna could see the longing in their eyes. The synthetic kept them alive and sane, but it didn't satisfy the deeper hunger. The hunt, the chase. The moment when prey became food. Elder Suho Beak sat alone in the corner, reading an old paper book. He looked up as Yuna passed. "You're afraid of us," he said. It wasn't a question. Yuna stopped walking. She could lie, but vampires could hear heartbeats. They knew when you were lying. "A little," she admitted. Suho nodded slowly. "Good. You should be. We are dangerous creatures. We have killed more humans than any plague, any war, any natural disaster." He turned a page in his book. "But that was long ago. We are different now. How did it happen?" Yuna asked. "How did humans and vampires make peace?" "My history classes never really explained it." Suho smiled, showing teeth that were just slightly too sharp. "Desperation? In the 25th century, Earth was dying. Climate collapse, resource wars, billions dead. Humans were too busy killing each other to hunt us anymore. And we realized that if humanity died, we would die too." He closed his book. "We need humans. Not just for food for meeting. We were human once, all of us. Without humanity, we are just parasites feeding on nothing. So you made a deal. We made a family." Suho stood and walked toward her. He was not tall, but his presence filled the room. "I have killed thousands of humans throughout my existence. I remember every single one. Their faces visit me in the quiet hours. But in the last 500 years, I have saved more humans than I ever killed. I protect your kind now. I have found purpose in guardianship rather than predation." He placed a cold hand over his silent heart. "The hunger never goes away, but I have learned to aim it at something deserving. Tomorrow, I will feed that hunger on creatures who threaten innocent lives. And for the first time in centuries, I will not feel ashamed of what I am." Yuna nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling me. Thank you for listening." Suho returned to his book. "Most humans prefer to pretend we don't exist. It's easier that way." Yuna left the vampire barracks and made her way to the werewolf deck. The wolves had transformed the space into something resembling a forest. Plants grew along the walls. Real soil covered parts of the floor, and artificial moonlight filtered through panels in the ceiling. The air smelled of pine and animal musk. Hana Jang was sparring with 3 of her wolves in the center of the main room. Even in human form, she moved like a predator, fast, brutal, efficient. Her opponents were all in partial transformation, somewhere between human and wolf, covered in fur with elongated faces and clawed hands. They couldn't land a single hit on her. She finished the match by throwing one wolf into another, then pinning the third to the ground with her foot. "Again," she ordered. "Faster this time." Yuna waited until the sparring resumed before approaching. Hana noticed her immediately. Werewolves had sharp senses even in human form. "Lieutenant Park," Hana said. "Come to study the animals?" "I came to understand," Yuna replied. "How do you stay human? With the wolf inside you?" Hana laughed. It was a rough sound, more bark than giggle. "Stay human? I'm not human. I haven't been since I was bitten at 19. She wiped sweat from her forehead. But I remember being human. I remember what it felt like. And I choose to hold on to that. Is it hard? Controlling the wolf? Every single day, Hannah's golden eyes met Yuna's. The wolf wants to hunt, to kill, to run free under the moon and taste blood on its tongue. It doesn't understand rules or civilization. It only understands pack and prey. And how do you manage? Hannah gestured to the wolves around her. Pack, family, purpose. The wolf understands loyalty. If I tell it that humans are pack, that Earth is our territory, that threats to our pack must be destroyed, the wolf listens. It's not about suppressing the beast. It's about directing it. She smiled, showing teeth that grew sharper as Yuna watched. The hollow are threats to our pack. Every living creature in the galaxy is pack now. And we're going to show them what happens when you threaten the werewolf's family. On the fourth day, Yuna found the courage to visit the demon deck. The space was wrong. That was the only word for it. The corridors twisted in ways that hurt to look at. Shadows moved independently of light sources. Sometimes doors opened to rooms that couldn't possibly fit in the available space. The demons had made this place their own, and their own was not bound by normal rules. Do-hyun Choi found her before she could get lost. You shouldn't wander here alone, he said kindly. Reality gets flexible in our territory. You might walk into a room and come out somewhere unexpected. Like where? Yuna asked nervously. Last week, one of the engineers stumbled into a pocket dimension and spent 3 hours thinking he was a fish. He's fine now, but he won't eat seafood anymore. Do-hyun grinned. Come, I'll show you something. He led her to a chamber that looked almost normal: 4 walls, a ceiling, a floor. But in the center of the room floated a sphere of absolute darkness. Looking at it made Yuna's eyes water. This is a gateway to the spaces between dimensions, Do-hyun explained. Where demons come from. Where we go when we're not here. The hollow exist in normal space, normal reality. They don't know places like this exist. What's it like? The space between? Do-hyun considered the question. Imagine a place where thoughts have weight, where emotions create landscapes, where time runs in all directions at once. It's beautiful and terrible, and completely alien to anything flesh and blood can understand. He waved his hand, and the darkness rippled. The hollow feed on consciousness. They're very good at it, but they can only reach consciousness that exists in their reality. What happens when we drag them somewhere else? Somewhere their rules don't apply? They die? Worse. Do-hyun's kind eyes suddenly looked ancient and cold. They experience what they've done to others. Every mind they've consumed, every soul they've devoured, they feel it all at once, for an eternity, in a single moment. Demons are very creative with suffering. We've had thousands of years to practice. Yuna shivered. That sounds horrible. It is. Do-hyun's expression softened. I don't enjoy it anymore. I used to, when I fed on human pain. But humans taught me something better. They taught me that strength can be used for protection instead of cruelty. That power doesn't have to mean suffering. He smiled, and for a moment he looked almost human. I still have the hunger for fear and pain. I always will. But now I only feed it with the fear and pain of those who deserve it. The hollow have earned everything I'm going to do to them. On the 7th day, Yuna visited Narration. The shaman had taken over a small meditation room near the bottom of the ship. The space was filled with candles, incense, and old photographs. Hundreds of photographs, covering every wall, showing faces from throughout human history. Mira sat in the center of the room, eyes closed, surrounded by cold air. Sit with me, she said without opening her eyes. The dead want to meet you. Yuna sat down carefully. The temperature dropped further. She could see her breath forming clouds in the air. "Who are they?" Una whispered. "The ghosts?" "Everyone." Myra opened her eyes. They were filmed with white, seeing something beyond the physical world. Everyone who ever died and chose to stay. Soldiers and mothers and children and kings. The angry and the peaceful. The vengeful and the forgiving. She gestured to the photographs. "I keep these to remember them. Each picture is a doorway. Each face is a friend. Can they really fight? Ghosts, I mean." Mira smiled gently. "Ghosts cannot touch the physical world easily, but they can touch the mind. They can enter dreams and memories. They can whisper thoughts into sleeping ears. They can make you remember things you've forgotten, or make you forget things you want to remember." The old woman's expression hardened. "The Hollow have consumed 17 species. Billions of souls, stolen and devoured. Those souls still exist, trapped inside the Hollow hive mind, screaming for release. When we arrive at Velora, I will give those souls a voice. I will let them speak to their captors. And I will show the Hollow what it feels like to be haunted." Una looked around at the photographs. Thousands of faces looked back at her, watching, waiting. "Will they follow your orders? The ghosts?" Myra laughed softly. "The dead don't follow orders. They follow purpose. Right now, their purpose is the same as mine. Justice for those who cannot seek it themselves." She reached out and took Una's hand. Her grip was warm despite the freezing air. "Don't be afraid, child. The dead protect the living. That's what they're for." On the 9th day, the fleet arrived at Valoran space. Una stood on the bridge beside Captain Taiho Kim and looked at the planet below. It was beautiful blue and green, covered in vast oceans and thick forests. It looked peaceful from orbit. But the readings told a different story. Millions of life signs, but strange, wrong, moving in patterns that made no sense. Hollow puppets wearing stolen bodies, going through the motions of lives they had devoured. "How many survivors?" Taiho asked. "Unknown, sir. The Hollow control most of the population centers. Resistance groups may still exist in the wilderness areas." Taiho nodded slowly. "Then we begin there. Find the survivors. Protect them. Then start hunting." Behind him, a night council assembled. Vampires, werewolves, demons, and ghosts. Earth's darkness, gathered for war. "Open a channel to the Valoran resistance," Taiho ordered. "Tell them help has arrived." He smiled, and his fangs gleamed in the bridge lights. "Tell them Earth sent its monsters." First contact with Terra-First Speaker Oris had been awake for 6 days straight. He was an old Valoran, nearly 90 cycles, with pale blue skin and 4 arms that trembled from exhaustion. His people were peaceful. They had no military, no weapons, no experience with war. When the Hollow came, they tried diplomacy. They tried negotiation. They tried surrender. The Hollow took everything anyway. Now Oris commanded what remained of the Valoran resistance from an underground bunker in the northern mountains. 3 million survivors out of a population of 12 billion. Everyone else was gone, either consumed by the Hollow or transformed into puppets wearing familiar faces. When the sensors detected incoming ships, Oris felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope.Earth had answered their call. Earth, the strange world at the edge of the galaxy, home to creatures that other species whispered about in fearful tones. Oris didn't care what kind of help came. Any help was better than none. But when the ships arrived, his hope turned to confusion. "There must be a mistake," his aide said, staring at the sensor readings. "The ships are showing no life signs, no heat signatures. They're completely dark." "Hail them," Oris ordered. "Ask them to identify themselves." The response came in the form of a shuttle detaching from the lead ship and descending toward the surface. The Valorans watched it land outside their bunker entrance, still showing no life signs, no heat. Nothing to indicate that anyone was aboard. Then the door opened. Captain Taiho Kim stepped out first. He wore a black uniform with no markings, and his skin was so pale it seemed to glow in the dim light. His eyes swept the gathered Valorans with a predator's focus. Behind him came others. Tall figures with golden eyes and too many teeth. Shadows that moved independently of their owners. Figures that flickered in and out of visibility, there one moment and gone the next. And at the rear, an old human woman surrounded by cold air and whispers. Oris felt his 4 hearts beating in different rhythms. Every instinct in his body screamed danger. These were not normal humans. These were something else entirely. First speaker Oris, Taiho said. His voice was quiet, but carried easily across the chamber. I am Captain Taiho Kim of the Earth Defense Fleet. You called for help. We have come. Oris found his voice with difficulty. We are grateful. But your ship showed no life signs. We thought perhaps they were automated vessels. Taiho smiled, and Oris saw fangs. We are alive, Taiho said. Just not in the way you might expect. May I introduce my colleagues? He gestured to an elegant figure with silver-streaked hair. Elder Suho Beak. He has not been truly alive for over 2,000 years. His heart stopped beating before your species developed space travel. The figure Suho inclined his head politely. His eyes never blinked. Ho continued. Hannah Zhang, Alpha of the Pacific Wolf clans. Her people transform under the full moon into creatures of pure instinct and hunger. The golden-eyed woman growled softly. It was a sound no human throat should be able to make. Dahin Choi. He is a demon, bound to Earth since ancient times. He exists partially outside your reality. The young man with kind eyes smiled. Shadows danced around his feet like excited pets. And Mira Shin, she speaks with the dead. They speak through her. The old woman said nothing. But the temperature in the room dropped sharply, and Oris could swear he heard voices whispering in languages he didn't understand. You asked for human help, Taiho said. But humanity is more complicated than you know. We spent thousands of years sharing our world with creatures from nightmares. Vampires who fed on our blood. Werewolves who hunted us in the dark. Demons who fed on our suffering. Ghosts who would not let us forget. He spread his hands. We learned to live together. We learned to make family out of enemies. And now, when our family is threatened, when any innocent species is threatened, we respond with everything we have. Oris struggled to process what he was hearing. You are monsters? Yes. Taiho's voice held no shame. We are exactly that. The Hollow are parasites that consume consciousness, correct? They devour the soul and leave behind an empty shell? That is correct. Then we are your perfect defenders. Taiho's eyes flashed red in the dim light. Vampires surrendered their souls for immortality. There is nothing left for the Hollow to consume. Werewolves have 2 minds protecting each other. The Hollow cannot navigate that maze. Demons exist outside normal reality. The Hollow cannot even perceive them properly. And the dead have already lost everything. What can you take from someone who has nothing left? Oris looked at the creatures standing before him. Monsters. Nightmares given form. The kind of things that Valoran children were told didn't exist. But Valoran children had also been told that evil couldn't win against good. That peace would always triumph over violence. That if you were kind enough, the universe would be kind in return. The Hollow had proven all of that wrong. What do you need from us? Oris asked finally. Taiho smiled. Information. Where are the Hollow concentrated? Where is their queen? How do they communicate with each other? Oris summoned maps and data to the display screens. The Queen is here in the capital city. She was the first to arrive. The hollow spread outward from her location like a disease. They are connected through a psychic network. Damage one, and the others feel it. Kill the Queen, and the network should collapse. Should? We have never successfully harmed the Queen. Our weapons cannot touch her. She is protected by millions of consumed minds, all working together to shield her consciousness. Hana stepped forward, her golden eyes bright with interest. Millions of minds, you say? All connected? Yes, it makes her nearly invincible. Hana laughed. It was not a comforting sound. Connected means vulnerable. If they can share strength, they can share weakness. What happens if we break some of those minds? Drive them insane? Fill them with fear so deep they can't function? I don't know. That has never happened. Dahin joined the conversation. In my realm, there are spaces where sanity itself unravels, where reality becomes a suggestion rather than a rule. If we can pull pieces of the Queen's network into those spaces, they would experience madness, Myra finished quietly. And that madness would spread through the entire hive mind like poison through blood. Suho spoke for the first time since his introduction. The Hollow have been predators for eons. They have consumed 17 species. They believe themselves invincible. His ancient eyes glittered coldly. They have never faced predators older and hungrier than themselves. Tonight, they will learn what it means to be prey. Oris felt a strange mixture of terror and hope. These creatures were frightening beyond anything he had ever encountered. But they were frightening on his side. There is something you should know, he said carefully. The consumed victims, our people, they are still aware inside. Trapped, unable to control their bodies, but still conscious. Killing the Hollow means killing them too. A heavy silence fell over the room. Myra walked forward slowly. She placed a gentle hand on Oris's arm. Despite her warmth, he could feel the coldness surrounding her, the presence of countless unseen spirits. I know, she said softly. The dead have told me. Your people scream inside their prisons of flesh, begging for release. They don't want to be saved. They want to be freed. Tears formed in Oris's eyes. Can you hear them? Truly? I hear everyone who has passed beyond. Myra's white-filmed eyes looked through him to something far away. Your daughter calls to you, first speaker. She was taken 3 weeks ago. She says she loves you. She says she's sorry she couldn't fight harder. And she says... Myra paused. She says please don't let her body hurt anyone else. Please let her rest. Oris broke. He fell to his knees, all 4 arms covering his face, and sobbed. His daughter, his beautiful, gentle daughter, consumed by the Hollow, turned into a puppet, forced to participate in the destruction of everything she loved. Taiho knelt beside him. His cold hand rested on the Valoran's shoulder. We will free them, Taiho said. All of them. The consumed will rest. The survivors will live. And the Hollow will learn that they made a terrible mistake when they threatened a world under Earth's protection. Oris looked up at the vampire captain through tear-blurred eyes. How can you be sure? They are so powerful. They have never been defeated. Taiho helped him to his feet. The Hollow have never faced us. They consume minds. We are made of hunger and darkness and things that exist beyond their understanding. They are strong, yes, but we have been hunting since before their species existed. He turned to his council. Suho, take the vampires and secure the perimeter. No Hollow escapes the planet. Hana, your wolves will protect the survivors and hunt any Hollow that approach. Dohyun, begin opening gates to the spaces between. I want escape routes and attack vectors ready. He looked at Myra last. And you. Begin waking the dead. Every ghost, every spirit, every soul the hollow have consumed. Give them voices, give them strength, and tell them that vengeance is coming. The Night Council moved to obey. Oris watched them go, vampires flowing like shadows, werewolves loping with predatory grace, demons flickering between dimensions, ghosts swirling in Myra's wake. His aide approached nervously. First speaker, are we certain we can trust them? They are monsters, Oris finished. Yes, they are monsters. He watched Taiho Kim give orders, his pale face calm and focused, his red eyes burning with purpose. But they are all monsters now, and may the stars have mercy on anything that stands against them. Outside, the sun was setting on Valora Prime. In the cities below, millions of hollow puppets continued their mindless routines, unaware that anything had changed. They would learn soon enough. The hunt was about to begin. The hunt begins. The first attack came at midnight. The hollow had never faced a force that could move in complete darkness. Their stolen eyes were built for daylight. Their consumed minds adapted to species that feared the night. When Elder Suho Beak led 300 vampires into the occupied city of Coral, the hollow didn't even realize they were under attack until it was too late. Vampires don't walk. They flow. They glide through shadows like water through cracks, silent and cold and impossibly fast. The first wave of hollow puppets died before they could even send a warning to the hive mind. Their necks snapped, their bodies crumpled, and the minds trapped inside finally found peace. Suho moved through the streets like death itself. A hollow soldier turned toward him, raising a weapon stolen from its Valoran host. Suho was beside it before the weapon could fire. His hand punched through the puppet's chest, and he felt the hollow. Consciousness inside tried to reach for his mind, thought it found nothing. Vampires had traded their souls for immortality. The space where consciousness should be was empty, dark, infinite. The hollow parasite touched that void and screamed a psychic scream that echoed through the entire hive mind. Every hollow on the planet felt one of their soldiers experience something impossible. A mind that couldn't be consumed because there was nothing there to consume. Suho smiled with bloody teeth. Tell your queen, he whispered to the dying hollow. Tell her we're coming. 10 kilometers to the north. Hannah Jang led her wolves in a different kind of assault. The werewolves had transformed fully, abandoning their human forms for the shape of the beast. They were massive 3 meters tall, covered in silver-gray fur, with claws that could tear through metal and jaws that could crush bone. They ran on 4 legs, then 2, then 4 again, changing their form moment to moment as the battle demanded. The hollow tried to seize their minds. They reached for the human consciousness inside each werewolf and found something unexpected. 2 minds, human and wolf, wrapped around each other in an endless dance. Every time they grabbed the human, the wolf bit back. Every time they grabbed the wolf, the human pulled away. It was like trying to hold water. The consciousness slipped through their grasp and reformed somewhere else. Hannah howled, and her pack howled with her. The sound was primal, ancient, a cry that had terrified humanity for 10,000 years. Now it terrified something far worse. She tore through a squad of hollow soldiers, her claws passing through armor like paper. The parasites inside tried desperately to adapt, to find a way past her mental defenses. They failed. One hollow managed to partially connect with her human mind. For just a moment, it saw through her eyes, felt what she felt, thought what she thought. It experienced the wolf. Pure instinct. Pure hunger. Pure rage. No logic, no reason. Nothing the hollow could understand or control. The wolf didn't think, it simply was. It was teeth and claws and the joy of the hunt. It was blood on snow and moonlight on fur and the endless, infinite freedom of running beneath the stars. The hollow parasite retreated in terror. It had consumed thousands of minds before. It had never encountered anything like this. This wasn't consciousness. It was something older, something that existed before thoughts had words. Before feelings had names. Hannah felt the parasite flee and grinned with a mouth full of fangs. "Good boy," she growled. "Now run. Run back to your queen. Tell her what's hunting her children." In the capital city, Dae-Yoon Choi opened doors that shouldn't exist. He walked through the streets alone, looking like an ordinary human in simple clothes. The hollow soldiers that approached him felt nothing special about his presence. They saw a single enemy easily consumed, hardly worth the effort. Then Do-hyun smiled and opened a gate. Reality tore like wet paper. A hole appeared in the air, a hole that led somewhere else, somewhere wrong. The hollow soldier nearest to Do-hyun was sucked through before it could react. In the space between dimensions, there was no up or down. There was no time moving forward. There was only infinite possibility and complete chaos. The hollow parasite tried to understand what it was experiencing and failed completely. Its stolen body screamed with 1,000 voices as every consumed mind inside it experienced eternity in a single instant. Do-hyun opened more gates. More and more, spreading across the city like wounds in the world. Hollow soldiers fell through, disappeared, and emerged seconds later as broken things. Their puppet bodies still moved, but the parasites inside were gone, driven mad. Shattered, reduced to something less than thought. The hive mind felt each loss. Each destroyed parasite was a piece torn from the whole. The queen, sitting in her palace at the center of the city, began to feel something she had never felt before. Fear. She reached out through her network, trying to understand what was happening. She touched the chaos of the demon dimensions and recoiled. She touched the empty void of the vampires and recoiled. She touched the endless loop of the werewolves and recoiled. What was attacking her? What kind of creatures could exist outside her reach? Then Narration entered the capital. The old shaman walked slowly, calmly, surrounded by cold air and whispers. She carried no weapons. She wore no armor. She looked like someone's grandmother taking an evening stroll, but she was not alone. Behind, around her, within her walked the dead. 17 species. Billions of souls. Every consciousness the hollow had ever consumed, still existing in some form within the hive mind, still screaming for release. Myra had found them. Mira had given them voices. And now they spoke. The hollow soldiers in the streets began to stumble. They grabbed their heads, their stolen hands clawing at their stolen faces. Inside each puppet, the consumed victims were waking up. The ghosts were talking to them, whispering courage, reminding them of who they had been before the hollow took them. "You are not gone," the spirit said. "You are still here. Fight back. Remember, fight back." The puppets began to rebel. Not all of them, the hollow, were too strong, too deeply embedded. But some victims, strengthened by the spirits, managed to resist. They stopped walking. They stopped obeying. They stood frozen as the parasite inside them fought desperately to regain control. Myra walked past them, touching each one gently. "Rest now," she whispered. "You fought long enough. Let go. Be free." One by one, the victims released their hold on life. Their bodies fell, empty at last, the parasites dying with them. The spirits welcomed each freed soul with joy and sorrow and the promise of peace. The queen felt her army falling apart from the inside. He screamed through the hive mind, ordering her soldiers to retreat, to regroup, to find safety. But there was no safety. Vampires in the darkness. Werewolves in the wilderness. Demons opening doors to madness. And ghosts everywhere, whispering, encouraging rebellion. Captain Taeho Kim stood on a hill overlooking the capital and watched the chaos unfold. Beside him, Una Park recorded everything for the Valoran survivors. "Is it always like this?" She asked quietly. When you fight? Taiho considered the question. It has been a long time since we faced an enemy worthy of our full strength. The Hollow are powerful, but they are limited. They understand only one kind of predation. We understand many. Will you kill the queen? Eventually. But first, we need to break her network. Destroy her soldiers. Free her victims. When she is alone, truly alone, cut off from the billions of minds she has consumed. He smiled with ancient satisfaction. Then, we will show her what it feels like to be prey. In the palace, the Hollow Queen gathered her remaining forces. She had never retreated before. She had never lost a battle before. She had consumed 17 species without ever facing a serious challenge. But these creatures from Earth were different. They didn't fight like normal species. They didn't think like normal species. They were monsters, true monsters, and they hunted her children with joy. She reached out to her network and sent a message to all surviving Hollow on the planet. Fall back to the palace. Protect the core. Prepare for siege. It was a message of fear. The first fear the Hollow had felt in 10,000 years of conquest. Outside the city walls, Suho Beak heard the retreat order through a dying Hollow's final thoughts. He smiled and licked blood from his fingers. She's scared, he said to his vampires. Good. Let her feel what her victims felt. Let her understand what it means to face something hungrier than yourself. He turned toward the palace, where the Hollow Queen waited in her stolen throne. Tonight, he said, we finish this. The vampires flowed forward, silent as death. The werewolves howled in the distance. The demons opened new doors. And the ghosts of 17 species whispered encouragement to the survivors still trapped inside hollow bodies. The hunt was reaching its end, and the Hollow were losing. The galaxy's new guardians. The siege of the palace lasted 3 days. The Hollow Queen had gathered her remaining forces behind walls of stolen flesh and absorbed minds. Millions of puppets stood between her and Earth's monsters, all of them connected to her consciousness, all of them expendable. But the Earth creatures were patient. They had been hunting for thousands of years. They could wait a little longer. Suho Beak directed the vampire assault from the eastern wall. His soldiers moved through the Hollow defenders like shadows, never engaging in direct combat, always striking from blind spots and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Each attack killed a few more puppets and freed a few more souls. Hana Jiang's wolves circled the palace constantly, picking off any Hollow that tried to escape or send messages to other worlds. The werewolves didn't tire. They didn't need rest. They simply ran and hunted and ran some more, driven by instincts that predated civilization itself. Do-Yoon Choi opened doors inside the palace walls. Random soldiers vanished into dimensions of chaos, their screams echoing through the hive mind before cutting off suddenly. The queen never knew where the next attack would come from. Reality itself was no longer safe, and Narration walked through the battlefield like a ghost herself, touching hollow puppets and whispering to the victims inside. Wherever she went, puppets fell. Wherever she went, trapped souls found peace. On the morning of the third day, the Queen's defenses finally collapsed. Captain Taiho Kim led the final assault personally. He walked through the palace gates as vampires cleared the way, stepping over fallen bodies with the casual grace of someone taking an evening stroll. His eyes glowed red in the dim light. The Queen's throne room was vast and empty. She had consumed everyone who lived here, absorbed them into herself, made their thoughts and memories part of her endless hunger. Now she sat alone on a throne made of bones, watching Taiho approach with something almost like curiosity. She was beautiful in the way that poison was beautiful, deadly, and cold, and fascinating. Her form was constantly shifting, made of light and shadow and the stolen faces of billions of victims. When she spoke, 1,000 voices spoke with her. What are you? She asked. I have consumed 17 species. I have never encountered anything like you. Your minds are wrong. Taiho stopped a few meters from her throne. We are what humanity made us. Creatures of nightmare, transformed by love into something better. He smiled. You feed on consciousness. We learn to exist without it, or around it, or beyond it. Your rules don't apply to us. Impossible. The queen's forms flickered with anger. All consciousness can be consumed. All minds can be taken. It is the fundamental truth of existence. Your existence, perhaps. Taiho gestured behind him, where the Night Council was gathering. Suho, ancient and cold. Hana, still half-elf, blood on her claws. Dohyun, surrounded by tears in reality. Mira, with an army of ghosts at her back. We come from a world where consciousness takes many forms. Human and vampire. Man and wolf. Living and dead. You assumed all minds were the same. You were wrong. The queen rose from her throne. Her presence was overwhelming, billions of consumed souls screaming inside her, all their power at her command. She was vast, terrible, a predator that had evolved beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. Then I will simply destroy your bodies, she said. Your minds may be beyond my reach, but your flesh is still vulnerable. She attacked. The power of 17 species crashed against the Night Council like a tidal wave. Psychic energy, telekinetic force, stolen technologies, and absorbed weapons. The palace shook. The walls cracked. The very air screamed with unleashed power. Suho Beak stood firm. He had faced armies before. He had faced empires before. He was 2,000 years old, and he had never fallen. The queen's power washed over him and found nothing to grip. No soul to burn. No consciousness to shatter. Just an empty void that drank her attacks and gave nothing back. Hannah Jang charged through the assault, her wolf form absorbing damage that would kill any normal creature. Her mind split and reformed, the queen's psychic attacks bouncing off her dual consciousness like rain off stone. Do-yoon, Choi simply stepped sideways into another dimension, letting the queen's attacks pass through the space where he had been. Then he emerged behind her and opened a door directly into her form. The queen screamed as part of herself, fell into the spaces between realities. Not much, just a tiny piece, a few thousand consumed souls. But the experience was more painful than anything she had ever felt. Those souls, trapped in chaos, sent their agony back through the hive-mind, and then Myra acted. The old shaman raised her hands, and the dead answered. Billions of ghosts, freed from their prisons inside the hollow, rose up against their former captor. They couldn't harm her directly. Ghosts couldn't touch the physical world easily. But they could enter the space where consciousness lived. They could speak to the souls still trapped inside her. Wake up, they whispered. Remember who you were. Fight back. Reject her. Be free. The queen's form began to waver. Inside her composite consciousness, trapped victims started to rebel. Encouraged by the ghosts, strengthened by hope, they pushed against the walls of their mental prisons. One by one, they broke free, not physically, but spiritually. They died willingly, gladly, knowing that death meant peace, and each death was a wound. The queen collapsed to her knees. Her form shrank as souls escaped, diminished as victims rejected her control. For the first time in 10,000 years, she felt small, vulnerable. Alone. Taeho walked forward until he stood directly over her. 17 species, he said softly. Millions of lives. Entire civilizations erased for your hunger. Did you ever consider that they were people? That they had families and dreams and hopes? They were food, the queen hissed. Nothing more. That is all any species is, food for something stronger. That's where you're wrong. Taiho reached down and grabbed her by the throat. His grip was cold as ice. Strength isn't about consumption. It's about protection. It's about choosing to shield the weak instead of devouring them. He looked into her eyes, billions of stolen eyes, all focused on him with hatred and fear. Humans learned that lesson the hard way. They spent thousands of years being hunted by us vampires, werewolves, demons, ghosts. They could have tried to destroy us. Instead, they chose to understand us, to make peace, to create family. His grip tightened. That's why they survive everything. Not because they're the strongest, because they're the most stubborn, the most adaptable, the most willing to find another way. The queen struggled weakly. You cannot kill me. I have millions of minds. I am eternal. Myra stepped forward. You are nothing but stolen lives, and we're giving them back. She reached out and touched the queen's forehead. The ghosts of 17 species surged forward. They entered the queen's form not to attack, but to embrace. They found every trapped soul, every consumed consciousness, every victim still screaming inside the hive mind. And they led them home. The queen's body dissolved as souls escaped. Her power faded as minds broke free. Her endless hunger finally found something it couldn't consume, the love of the dead for those they had lost. In the end, she was nothing. A single parasite, barely conscious, lying on the floor of an empty throne room. No victims left to steal. No network to sustain her. Just a small, pathetic creature that had once called itself eternal. Suho walked forward and looked down at her remains. Shall I end it? Taiho considered the question. No, let her live. Let her experience existence without power, without victims, without purpose. He turned away. That's a worse punishment than death. The war ended 17 days after it began. First speaker. Aris stood before a crowd of 3 million survivors. Every. Valaran, who had escaped the Hollow's consumption. They cheered as the Earthships prepared to depart, celebrating a victory that should have been impossible. Taiho Kim stood beside Oris, uncomfortable with the praise. We did what needed to be done. There's no need for gratitude. There is every need. Oris looked at the vampire with something like affection. You came when no one else would. You fought for people you had never met. You freed our dead and protected our living. He placed all 4 hands on Taiho's shoulders. Whatever you are, Captain Kim, you are heroes.